Today in Recharge, we're going to be looking at the vendor invoice process and how easy it is to capture a vendor invoice journal. What we have is the ability to firstly just utilize the accounts payable vendor invoice journal process. We can create a new journal, much the same way that we would raise any vendor invoice in the system. When capturing the invoice, we're going to select the transaction or the ledger account that we're actually impacting. In this case, I'm going to take one of my expense accounts. This expense account is an office supplies account. I'm going to book it to my business unit, which is just a standard financial dimension. And I'm going to select a specific department. In this case, the sales and marketing department. What you'll notice at the bottom of the screen over here is there are some recharge attributes that have been populated already. This is based on the legal entity that has been selected for the origination of this transaction, and it's set to the US legal entity source. This just drives certain posting profiles and allocation defaulting that we require in the system, and is a defaulted field not impactable by the user. The three fields on the right is where you would typically select the actual cost center for recharge, or for the allocation itself to apply, or the sub-department that the transaction applies to. What you will notice though is in my example, just saving the line so we can populate this information. It doesn't matter when you actually save the line, we can simply save it at the end, or we can force the save by pushing the save button at the top here. What the system is now doing is just finalizing the information over here. So what you can see is once the actual line is saved, we don't have anything captured at the moment. So it's telling us that recharge ledger entry will be skipped. That is a sub-ledger for the recharge process to calculate the recharge proposals. But what you will have noticed is that the allocation and the recharge cost center is defaulted at the bottom of the screen here. Now, the default of the cost center is a mapping from the financial dimension through to the recharge cost center. And in my example here, the recharge cost center and the department have been set up using the same values, but these values can be different. In addition, we have an allocation restriction in place, which prevents the selection of any other allocation in the system, which means that there is a unique value that the system can select. If there's only one value that applies to this transaction, the system will pick the automatic allocation from the allocation groups that are being configured. We can continue our process now. We can capture our invoice details, put in our expense, and most importantly, we would obviously select our vendor that we are adding this transaction to. Just use Joe's Service Company. We can add taxes, we can do all the good things that a normal invoice journal applies. The difference being that once the recharge allocation has been selected, what you will know is that the recharge ledger has been now populated. So what the system's doing at the moment is obviously saving the record with regard to the journal itself, as well as updating the recharge ledger entries. So if we just hover over here, we can see the allocation that would have been applied to this transaction. Now in this state, the recharge ledger entries would have been created as a draft entry, because at this point, anything can change. We can delete the line, the recharge ledger entries disappear. We can change the amount, the recharge ledger entries are updated with the new amounts, and so on. So all of that is still being handled by the system. This message over here is in relation to the original record when I saved it, when there was no value. What we can do now is we can simply post this journal, we could submit it through workflow, we can do all the good things that would normally apply to your recharge or to your normal daily process. What triggers while this is posting, what triggers the actual population of the recharge ledger is a setting on the main account to say that this account, any transactions posted to it can be recharged outwards, which means that an allocation can be selected on those transactions. If the account does not have a recharge marker on it, the system will simply handle it as a normal transaction where no recharge entries would be populated. Once the recharge ledger entry table has been updated, we then have the ability to raise a recharge proposal, which would then take the transactions that were marked by the allocation and pushes it out to the separate legal entities in the system. Okay, once the journal has been posted, we obviously get the confirmation as we would with any other normal journal. Benefit now, or just to show you what's happening at this point, is we can go to the recharge ledger entries. Just go to inquiries, go to the recharge ledger. This is the subledger that recharge is based on. And what we can see on today's date, these are the transactions that I've just captured. And we can see in this example that there's certain markups, which is one of the features of recharge, where we can add a percentage to the original transaction. And in this case, these two transactions are related. We can see that by the fact that it's for the same target legal entity. We know this is part of one recharge purely because this is the only transaction I've processed on this date. Alternatively, we can add fields like the allocation group or the source transaction to this grid so we can see the original sources. We can see there's a 5% markup on this entry, and on this top entry here, we can actually see there's a 10% markup. So the markups are defined based on the legal entity that they are being marked down to. Okay, we can see these are non-completed transactions, and we can see they are confirmed. What that means is that the transaction is no longer a draft journal or a draft PO or a draft invoice. It has been posted, and there are transactions, active transactions in the system, and they are therefore set as confirmed. What this means is that these confirmed transactions can be selected on a recharge proposal, and they can then be posted out further. You can see here that we have other transactions are also confirmed. We have draft transactions, all waiting to be either posted, marked off, or posted through automatically. From this point forward, we would then go through the normal recharge proposal process, which is explained in our purchase process for recharge. We don't want to go through the same process over and over. We'll just keep this nice and short. Once you've recharged, you'll be able to see the impact on the recharge ledger. And instead of the transaction being confirmed, it would then be moved through to an invoiced or completed state.